Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors! As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm excited to bring you a new video where I'm going to talk about some affordable Golden Age collecting. This was a recommendation when I did the 250 subscriber contest. I asked people to give me suggestions as to what they wanted, and viewer John suggested he wanted to see me talk about collecting underrated or undervalued or cheap Golden Age titles that you can collect. So I thought I'd talk about that because it does tie into a couple things I wanted to talk about. Before I get into that, nice segue here. I'm currently doing a 300 subscriber contest. It's really easy. I'm going to have the link down below. You just go to that video. All you need to do is ask me a question in the comments, and you'll be entered to win a mystery box. It's for US only, but that's it. You can just watch that video, ask me anything, and when I get to 300 subscribers, I'm going to answer everyone's questions and give away a box of comics. So, for now, though, let's get back to this topic. So, one reason I wanted to talk about this is that one thing that I've really been noticing a lot recently is that there's different collector bases and different ecosystems for different periods in comics. Increasingly, I'm seeing a big disconnect in terms of valuation and pricing and spending in these different eras of comics. And I think it's because the collecting community doesn't necessarily overlap that much. Specifically, the modern comic community, particularly stuff like after 2000, the valuation of books is just completely different than it is for the other eras. I would say that the other eras would be there's a chunk of collecting that seems to be basically connected in terms of pricing, and that would be the silver, bronze, copper age up through into the 90s. So stuff from the late 50s to the 90s is like one collecting base. Then there's the golden age stuff, and we got the modern stuff, and what's happening price-wise in one of those groups does not seem to overlap into others. For instance, I was looking at some modern stuff, and if you look at books like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur #1, copies are going for over $100. And if you're looking at like 9.8s, it starts getting like way up there for some things. Like a 9.8 copy of like the first appearance of America Chavez was selling for like over $600 on eBay recently. And it kind of just made me think, like, there's so many very recent books where the value level is completely out of scale compared to the importance and impact of the characters when you contrast those to books from like the 70s or 80s. And it seems weird to me as an older collector, because in a lot of cases it feels like people are speculating on the potential impact that these characters could have, at the same time that they're undervaluing the actual impact that some of these long-running characters actually have already had. I brought it up multiple times, but like the first appearance of the Rocketeer has a great back cover, full image by the great late Dave Stevens, introducing the Rocketeer. Great image. Had his own movie, has been featured in an ongoing Disney cartoon, has a reboot coming out, and has been in pop culture for 30 or 40 years now, making this consistent impact with now a couple generations of people have seen, the Rocketeer movie and stuff. I feel like a Rocketeer just flew into my mouth. And yet, you can get that book for $15 or $20. And compare that to characters who have been out for like 3 or 4 years, and people are spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on first appearances and first issues of books that may not have, and characters that may not have any lasting impact whatsoever. But it's almost like the potential that they may at some point be important to someone is valued higher than the actual impact that characters have actually already had for a long period of time. To me, I don't understand. But what I've come to realize is, like, I don't really need to understand, other than it's just a completely different ecosystem. The pricing and valuation of modern books is not connected to the pricing and valuation of copper and bronze and silver age books. And the same is true for the Golden Age. The Golden Age books are increasingly their own thing. And when I was growing up, collecting comics in the 80s and 90s, it never occurred to me that I could get Golden Age books. Because when you think of Golden Age books, you think of, issues of Batman or Detective and Superman and Captain America that are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars or thousands and thousands of dollars in any condition at all, and there's no way that you could ever afford them. But the valuation of those is not scaled compared to these new things. Again, you could spend $600 on the first appearance of America Chavez, and this is no knock on the character because I think she's cool. Or you could spend $600 to get a solid, low-grade issue of Captain America from the late 40s. And Captain America is one of the more expensive books, but you can do it. You could get lots of issues of Action or Superman for less than that, or Batman for significantly less than that. And so there's that element of it, but there's also the fact that those are the top tier books. There were so many titles in the Golden Age that lasted so long and had so many issues coming out that there's tons and tons of books with lots of cool content from the Golden Age that are extremely affordable when you compare them to collecting even Silver Age or Bronze Age or Copper Age, much less modern books. So I do have a few things that I collect, or things that have gotten into my collection at some kind of different price levels, but that are all very affordable. And these are just a sample of some things. I mean, one of the big things is that a lot of the other genres besides superhero books are dirt cheap. Now, that isn't necessarily true for horror books, right? But if you wanted to collect things like funny animal books or classic illustrated, or for instance, if you wanted to collect westerns, or even some teen humor, you can get that stuff. Things that are like radio adaptations, if you wanna get issues of Big Town or something like that, they're not that expensive. You want issues of My District Attorney, you can get them. You can get war books relatively cheap, depending on what title it is, particularly if they're not DC or Atlas. There's lots of other companies that put out war books that you can get really cheap, and even those can be cheap if they're in lower grade. So if you're looking at other genres, you can get stuff really cheap. I've got a couple examples here. But even in the superhero genres, there's titles that you can get that are still very cheap. Obviously, I've talked a lot on my channel about what a big fan I am of Boy Comics. Boy Comics ran 117 issues. It's nominally a superhero book. It's sort of more of a true crime. But there's 117 issues of this series, and when I was putting together my complete run, I would say that I only paid more than $10 each for the first 30 of those. So the last 85 plus issues of the series, I didn't pay more than $10 for a single one of them. And that's even more true of the latter half of the sister book, Daredevil, also from Lev Gleason. Obviously, the earlier issues that more prominently feature the character Daredevil are going to be in higher demand. But even this, which is issue 58, once they start getting into the Little Wise Guys being the main draw in the book and having the main title, these are dirt cheap. You can get these in some cases for $3, $4, $5. You can get. I have issues of this Golden Age series PreCode that I paid less than the amount you would pay for a cover price for a new comic today. And you can get that not just at some shows or at some stores, but you can get them on eBay. I've gotten issues of Daredevil on eBay for $5 each. So these are titles that are cool, and they're anthology titles. A lot of these Golden Age books are anthology titles, so yeah, it's possible that the quality varies wildly. Sometimes you'll have really bad stories, and then the next story will be cool because they have completely different creative teams with different characters. It's all over the place, but it's cheap. So here's another title I have several issues of. It's Target, ran for a long time. As you can see here, I paid $5 for this issue, and the cover art's not great, but because he kind of buries the lead here. But this is a World War II era issue. So these are a group of soldiers who are stranded on this island, and there's a Japanese destroyer going by, and they're basically like hiding. And the stories inside, some of which are superhero stories, because it has the superhero target. And then there's another group, I think they're called Red, White, and Blue, or costumed heroes, and each one is from a different branch of the military or something. So yeah, like I have several issues of Target. I've only paid like $5 each for them. The quality varies wildly, but again, if you want to dip your toe into the golden age, it's super affordable. Going up the scale a little bit, something that cost me a little bit more money, but is a classic series from Quality. It's National Comics. Now, the first 40 some issues or so feature Uncle Sam, and those are going to cost you. Like, those will be 3 figures for those. But once Uncle Sam was phased out and replaced by this goofy Nimrod, the Barker, then these suddenly become really cheap. But the thing is, they still have a lot of the same creative teams, a lot of the same backup series. So there's several ongoing things. There are superhero stories in these issues. There's a character named Quicksilver, who is in some of these, and Granny Gumshoe is the reason that I bought this issue. And then there's things like detective stories, all sorts of cool stuff. Now, it's low grade. It's got rusty staples. It's probably a 2.5, but it's a solid, tight, complete golden age classic series. This is issue 64. I paid $20 for this. And I have one other issue, the issue 57, which is the first Granny Gumshoe that I bought at a show for $35, and that's in slightly nicer condition. So, it's going up a little bit in price, but when you think about, the price of new comics or the price of what you might be paying for back issues or modern comics, when the most recent variant of some title is selling for $100 or $150, you can get these classic Golden Age books in solid lower grade condition for $20, $25, $30. And here's another example, a title I have several issues of, and it's WoW Comics. Now, the later issues of WoW Comics don't even have Mary Marvel, and those are super cheap. But I have a number of issues with Mary Marvel. She's not the only superhero in this series. It's an anthology series. It's also got Phantom Eagle. It's got Scarlet, and Mr. Scarlet and Pinky or whatever. Anyway, it's weird, but it's another superhero title. So there's several superhero ongoing strips in WoW Comics. They feature some great covers with Mary Marvel. Again, I have several issues. Obviously, you've seen my 38, and that one I paid $60 for. But the other ones I've only paid $25 or $30 each for them. You can see this still has a price on it. It was $25 at a convention. It's not in great shape. There's a little bit of brittleness on the spine and a little bit of paper loss in the corners. So it's probably, again, a 2 or a 2.5. But, I have some that are nicer, that are more in the 4 to 4.5 range that I paid $30 for. And across the board, a lot of the Fawcett books, a lot of the Marvel family books, Captain Marvel Jr. is a book that's really undervalued. I have, I don't think I have it anymore, but I had a couple issues of that I paid $5 each for. So you can really get some good deals on the Captain Marvel stuff and some really cool stories. Finally, again, just as an illustration of some of the other genres, here is Disney books. Now, this one is, I think it's technically Silver Age. It originally came out in 55, so it's borderline. But the Walt Disney Comics and Stories was the biggest selling title throughout the 50s. And so you can get issues of Disney Comics with great Disney artists and cool Disney stories, dirt cheap, $5, $10 each from the Golden Age. It's a great way to dip your toes in. If you're interested in keys, there are some key issues. Obviously, Disney Comics here in the U.S. are not nearly as big as they used to be, but they're still really big in Europe. So things like, I think it's 4-color 386, I think it is, with the first appearance of Uncle Scrooge, who's a really important Disney character who actually first appeared in the comics and not in the cartoons or movies. There's some really cool stuff like that. Obviously, the Barks issues and things like that. Now, for me, I don't really collect Disney that much, but what I do, I'm a huge fan of the theme parks. So things like the Vacation in Disneyland, I have a small collection of these. And this has stuff like this tremendous back cover here. And again, this is a book that cost me like $10 or $12 on eBay. And you can if you have like collecting niches outside of superhero books, you can get stuff very cheap, very easily. And as I've shown, even with superhero books, there's a lot of long running titles with really cool content that you can still get very, very affordably, particularly when you compare it to the prices of like Silver Age Marvel or modern like variants and hot issues. So that's it, just a little overview. I mean, again, I never thought that I could get into Golden Age books until I actually tried to do it, and then I discovered, oh, actually, yes, it's not that difficult. If you have your sight sets on like the big stuff, then yes, that can be very expensive. You can still find deals here and there. I have one issue of Sensation Comics and about probably a 2.0 that I got that I only paid like $40 for, so you can find deals. But anyway, that's it. I hope this helped. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.